acknowledging his weakness to Allah, and in that he's finding strength. Strength in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not challenging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send you bad conditions and say, I'm going to pull through and watch what I do. Strength is acknowledging your weakness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ says, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, bi rahmatika astaghith, aslih li sha'ni kulla, wa la takilni ila nafsi tarfata ayn. Oh Allah, don't leave me to myself for the blink of an eye. I'm weak. I have my flaws. I have my imperfections. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that do not wish for fitna. Don't wish for fitna. Don't wish for hardship in your life. Allah tests you. You don't test Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tests. And the Prophet ﷺ said, if Dajjal came out, don't think to yourself, MashaAllah, I'm a strong Muslim, I'm a strong believer, I'm going to go face Dajjal and tell him in his face he's Dajjal. What did the Prophet ﷺ say, do? He told the companions, if you hear that Dajjal is out and he's in a land, go to another land, run. Don't think that you're going to be able to face him and argue with him and debate with him. Don't ask for hardship and trial in your life. Acknowledge your weakness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an integral part of dua, whether it's physical weakness or spiritual weakness. Who can give me an example of physical weakness from the Quran? Acknowledging your physical weakness. How about Zakaria alayhi salam or Ayub alayhi salam? When Zakaria says, وَاشْتَعَلَ إِنِّي وَهَنَ الْعَظْمُ مِنِّي وَاشْتَعَلَ الرَّأْسُ شَيْبًا. I'm weak on the inside, my bones are decaying, I'm an old man, my head is full of gray hair. That's a form of dua, acknowledging your weakness to Allah physically. What about spiritually, acknowledging your weakness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How about the very first dua that was taught to man? وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. If you don't forgive us and have mercy on us, then we will be from the losers. So acknowledge your weakness to Allah, cry to Allah and acknowledge your weakness to Allah, and that is actually a form of strength, admitting that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even saying to Allah, look Allah, I can't even repent without you. I can't even properly repent without you. I need you, O Allah. Free yourself from yourself. And that's why Yusuf alayhi salam is the first on the Day of Judgment that is shaded by Allah's throne in a particular category. He's already a prophet, so he's already amongst those that are shaded by the throne of Allah. But he will arrive in a category that the Prophet ﷺ says, a young person. And by the way, the hadith of the 7 shaded applies to men and women. Okay, someone that was called to zina by someone of hasab and jamal, of status and beauty. Status means they can cover you as far as your worldly consequences are concerned. You'll be okay if you do this from a worldly perspective. And they're beautiful, so you actually do desire them. فَقَالَ إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهِ. But that person says, no, but I'm afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ mentions that as a category of people shaded by the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yusuf alayhi salam will be the chief of them. Why? Because Yusuf has everything working against him. He's single. Alright? He's single. He's really handsome. And he's in a desperate situation. She, on the other hand, she's beautiful. Okay, look, Al-Aziz is not going to marry a woman that's not beautiful. Alright? The woman is beautiful. And there are many things that are said about her as far as athar and narrations are concerned about the beauty of this woman. She's beautiful. She's in power. She's threatening him with consequences if he doesn't answer her call. So both the internal and the external factors are against Yusuf alayhi salam. And he still calls upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, they say psychologically, we're motivated by 3 things. Everything we do in life comes out of 3 things. Fear, pain, pleasure. Any of you heard that before? We're motivated by fear, pain, or pleasure. All of these 3 things are against Yusuf alayhi salam. Okay? So he fears the consequences, but he fears Allah more. Alright? He knows that he's going to be beaten, he's going to face pain in this world for not answering her call. But the pain of the hereafter is more important to him. He desires the woman. This is pleasure. He desires the woman. But the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more important than his own pleasure. So he's able to master all 3 of these things that psychologically motivate a person in the first place and instead direct them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ says in the Hadith Qudsi that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said after describing the stages at which a person arrives at the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِذَا أَحْبَبْتُ. If I love someone, كُنْتُ سَمْعَهُ الَّذِي يَسْمَعُ بِهَا. When Allah loves you, He becomes the hearing by which you hear, the sight by which you see, the hand by which you strike, the foot by which you walk. What that means is, you will get to a point where you only hear those things that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Things that you used to listen to because they pleased you, you now actually dislike them because you know that they're displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is natural, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you in a way that looking at someone from the opposite gender that's attractive is pleasing to you. But because you know that it's not pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you actually want to lower your gaze. You actually don't want to look because you know that it's not pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You find an aversion to things that you naturally incline towards. Why? Because Allah is more precious to you than even yourself. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. And those who believe, their love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than anyone's love for anything else. That's a love that cannot be quantified. And so Yusuf alayhi salam is able to put that away. Why? He says, not only will I incline towards them, أَكُن مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ, I will end up being from amongst the ignorant. Now why didn't Yusuf alayhi salam say, أَكُن مِنَ الْفَاسِقِينَ, أَكُن مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ, I would be from the disbelievers, I would be from the major sinners? Does ignorance really seem like the word that fits the situation? Does it? Like, I'll be from the ignorant. Like, if I do this terrible thing, then I'll be considered amongst the ignorant. What is Yusuf alayhi salam talking about? What ignorance is he talking about? He's talking about being placed in a situation of being jahilun billah, ignorant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because sin dims the light in your heart. Sin dims the light in your heart and your ability to have a meaningful relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your ability to be arif billah, someone who knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a meaningful way. Someone who connects with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sin is the direct barrier between your heart and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, and I know, look, when you say something like this, it scares everybody. Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah authored a very famous poem. Okay? And it was after he saw the ankle of a woman. And we hear that and we're like, are you serious? Where does that leave me? He saw the ankle of a woman and he says, "Shakawtu ila Waki' su'a hifdhi." I complained to Waki' that I was no longer able to memorize properly. فَأَرْشَدَنِي إِلَى تَرْكِ الْمَعَاصِي. He told me to stop sinning. He said, why? He said, "عِلْمُ اللَّهِ نُورًا وَنُورُ اللَّهِ لَا يُعْطَى لِعَاصِي." The knowledge of Allah is light, and the light of Allah won't be given to a disobedient person. And Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala attributed weakness in memory and his dimming in his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he saw something that was inappropriate at the time. Now let's not look at that and say, okay, we're done. If that's the case, then we have absolutely no chance. But let's consider in our own circumstances. If I'm sitting at home and if I'm watching things that I'm not supposed to be watching, and I'm constantly engaging in activity that's displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that hinders my ability to have khushu' in my salah, to taste the sweetness of my prayer, to have a meaningful relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because I'm leading my heart to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I can't expect it to be filled except by other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have to be able to cut those things out. And the greatest consequence of sin is that it moves you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The greatest consequence is that it hinders that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Yusuf alayhi salam is once again affirming that the ultimate loss is the loss of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I'm willing to face everything else so long as it still means that I can have that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now Yusuf is thrown into prison. And you know something very powerful that the scholars say? Slander is more difficult than anything else that a person will face in life. Even if you go to prison, but you still have your dignity, right? There are political prisoners all around the world that are unjustly imprisoned. Not because of justice. They are unjustly imprisoned by tyrants and dictators and whatever you may have. Half of them, if not more, are in the Muslim world. Okay? Unjustly imprisoned political prisoners. But you know what? They have their dignity. They have their izzah. They know that they were in prison for something good. For something that was true. For standing for justice. But whenever you are slandered, you would rather be in prison than have your reputation taken away from you. Some people would rather die. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ says that an-namam, the slanderer, will not enter Jannah. One of the most powerful explanations, actually my teacher, Shaykh Raja, hafidahullah, was